Hi, everyone, and welcome to the information session for the 2025 PAD Showcase Artist Application. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are coming to you today from what is now called Portland, Oregon, the traditional homelands of the bands of Chinook, Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Wasco, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes. The lands upon which Portland was built at the confluence of the Columbia and Willamette rivers served for millennia as a gathering and trading location for these first peoples, connecting resources from the Pacific Ocean to the Rocky Mountains. Today, Portland is the ninth largest urban indigenous population in the U.S., with over 58,000 Native Americans representing more than 380 tribes. Nearly all are transplants, however, as the area's original inhabitants were forcibly relocated in the mid-1800s to accommodate American settlers arriving on the Oregon Trail. They joined the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians in another part of Oregon on reservations, and the Chinook Nation and Cowlitz Nation in Washington State. My name is Ed Bourgeois, and I am the program manager for Performing Arts Discovery Program, or PAD for short. The PAD program is funded by the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with the Regional Arts Organizations, or RAOs, New England Foundation for the Arts, Mid-Atlantic Arts, South Arts, Arts Midwest, Mid-America Arts Alliance, and Creative West, formerly WestStaff. I am excited to share some information about this program and encourage performing artists to apply for the 2025 cohort of the program before the deadline of January 17th, 2025. So what is the PAD program? The purpose of the Performing Arts Discovery Program is to create resources and opportunities for tour-ready U.S. artists to perform internationally. The National Endowment for the Arts launched the Performing Arts Discovery Program in 2015 to promote U.S. artists to international festival directors, programmers, and venue managers. Originally, programmers were brought to the Western Arts Alliance Conference and other regional conferences to meet and see U.S. artists showcase. During the pandemic, PAD shifted to an online showcase in order to increase the reach of program artists who were no longer able to travel. Today, PAD is a hybrid of both models. We've maintained the online video showcase gallery, while also providing support for program artists to attend the WA conference and network with international programmers who attend face-to-face. In addition to WA membership, the conference, and other professional development, an important program takeaway for artists is a video asset produced by the program, which is showcased on a cloud-based platform and promoted internationally. The video belongs to the artists upon completion to help support their own artistic endeavors. Click this QR code to see the current gallery of 64 artist video showcases online. To create this asset, artists have video and audio recording equipment shipped to their home locations, and with the support of a remote team of dedicated experts, they're walked through the process of recording and producing a 15-minute showcase video. There are more details on this and the other benefits of the program in the FAQs on the PAD web page, shown here on your screen, and in the FAQs on the application page, so definitely check that out. We strongly encourage artists to navigate through the entire PAD website to learn more about the program and application guidelines. And please reach out with any questions you may have. Here is my email address, which you'll also find listed on the PAD website. PAD is actually comprised of two initiatives. One is the PAD Showcase, for which you are applying. The other is PADX, funded by a 3-year grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. PADX offers artists, agents, and other performing arts professionals the opportunity to join trade mission delegations to performing arts markets in Europe, South America, and the Pacific. With the goal of exporting U.S. talent to international markets, PADX provides delegates travel support as well as value-added benefits like trade show booths, promotion, and facilitated meetings with international partners. There's a page on the PAD website where you can learn more about the PADX opportunity. But let's get back to the reason you're here, to hear about the PAD Showcase application. Applications for the program are open to U.S.-based artists or ensembles in all genres of music, dance, theater, and multidisciplinary performance, with a demonstrated capacity to tour internationally. We encourage artists who identify as BIPOC or LGBTQ+ to apply. The portal is open now and is easily accessed on the PAD website. So the application process. The application deadline is January 17th at 11:59 p.m., and that is Pacific time. Please plan to submit well before that time to ensure that it uploads before the deadline time. Your applications will be reviewed and scored by a panel of performing arts professionals nominated by the regional arts organizations. The panel is selected with a priority of ensuring a balance of representation of disciplines, geography, identity, such as gender and culture, and all the panelists have expertise in at least one of the artistic disciplines of music, dance, theater, and multidisciplinary practice. The adjudication panel will select the cohort based on the following criteria. Artistic excellence. Does the artist or ensemble demonstrate a high level of artistry and expressiveness, as evidenced in the work samples? 2, readiness to tour. Do the history, experience, and promotional assets demonstrate a readiness to tour internationally? Third is artistic merit. Does the work convey the cultural and aesthetic plurality of American culture to domestic and international audiences in a compelling way? That is also based on work samples and on the artist statement you'll provide. This one is a key to understanding how to set yourself up for selection. In promoting artists internationally, one thing that we've become aware of is how programmers overseas often don't have an understanding of what is American music and dance, theater, and performance art. And so it's very important to relay a clear message about how your work tells the American story or your part in it. That's why it's critical that your application address these 3 criteria. The work must be good. You must be able to show that you have the capacity and repertoire to tour, and that you have the materials ready to help a programmer tell your story to their audience. Festivals and venues overseas are not looking for works in development, but complete packages that are ready to promote. Artists selected for the PAD cohort will be notified by March 14th, 2025. Now, because we know applications can seem daunting, we thought it would be helpful to preview the PAD application and walk you through what you'll need and the steps to apply. As you think of questions that I haven't answered, either ask them in the chat or hold them until we've gotten through the application, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. So here we go. I'm going to pull up the WA or PAD webpage. Here you go to www.westarts.org. And One of the programs here is Performing Arts Discovery. You can access the application by clicking there or by going to the Programs menu and clicking on Performing Arts Discovery. Take you to the same place. This is the PAD webpage. Up here in the top right corner is a menu with the 2025 application. We're going to click that. And this is the actual application page, which has all the information, including the FAQs. All the program benefits are listed, and you can scroll all the way down to see those. And right here is the button for the application itself. We'll click that. And this takes us to Submittable, which is an application, a portal for accepting applications to programs, and it's widely used. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. If you're not, and it's the first time you've gone into it, it will probably ask you to set up an account, which you do want to do so that you can access this application and any other applications you make in the future through Submittable. Okay, from this place, you're going to find the PAD Showcase application in Submittable and hit Submit. The guidelines are here if you'd like to take a look first. But if you hit that button, the orange button, it will take you to another set of the program guidelines. All the instructions for completing the application are here. At the very bottom, a place where you can return, a link to return to the FAQs. And if you have questions, my contact email is linked here. So please feel free to reach out at any time with your questions. Now, the application. The artist or ensemble name. This is the name of your, if you're a member of a company, a group, if you're making an application on behalf of a company, a group, an ensemble, that is the name that you'll put here, not your own. Before we continue, if you've used Submittable before, you know this, but if not, at any time when you're working on your application, you need to leave the page. Go down to the bottom first and be sure to click Save Draft. That will save all your information, and you'll be able to return directly to the page and take up where you left off. Please don't forget to do that. You don't want to lose your information. So back to the top, you've put in the name of the artist or ensemble. The submitter, that's you, and you'll need to click here whether you're a self-represented performer, a performer with representation, or an agent or manager who's completing the application on behalf of one of the artists that you represent. If you do click performer with representation, a subset will come up asking for the information of your agent or manager and the agency and contact information. Otherwise, you're the submitter. You complete this information. We need your contact information, whether you're a WA member. It's not necessary to be a WA member to apply. If you are selected, you'll receive a complimentary 1-year WA membership. Then information, contact information on the applying artist, whether you're an individual artist or an ensemble, all of that contact, email, your website, a description of your discipline, very general terms, music, dance, theater, variety, multidisciplinary, family, and young audience. Below that, the subgenre will allow you to get much more detailed, including, if you don't find your subgenre there, the opportunity to write in a more custom response. We do ask if you identify as any of the following. Of course, this is an optional question. You can leave it blank. Your goals. The artist statement is very important, and this is your opportunity to tell us who you are, tell us your story, tell us what you do, and how it represents in any way the American story or the part that you have in that American story. Your PAD goals, and if there are particular international markets that you're hoping to expand into. We'd like to know that here. Previous showcases. It may be a jury showcase that you've been selected for. It may be an independent showcase that you've purchased a slot in. Either way, we want to see what kind of experience you have with the showcases that we will be doing, both live at the conference and remotely creating these videos. Your touring history, if this exists on your website or on a CV, there's no need to duplicate it, write it out here. You can just list a link to that page. International touring experience. If you have something that you have toured abroad in the past, please indicate that. If you don't, perhaps you have relationships with programmers that have expressed an interest in having you tour or perform in their festivals or events, in which case, please list those so that we know where you've been making inroads and what your strategy, what your long-term goals are there. Readiness to tour, it's really important to provide as much as possible here to let us know that you have both the skills, the experience, and the repertoire that's ready to tour. It could be a particular show, a body of work, a choreography, something that that you are ready, that is packaged and ready to go. And you can include a depth of details here, from the number of cast members, the number of members of the company, the technical requirements, backline if it's music, what your target audience might be, anything that would be a particular hook for an international programmer. What your typical fee is, not including travel, that we expect is something that would be negotiable. You try to work that out separately with the programmer. Performance, load, and strike time. How complicated is the show? Does it go up quickly? Can it be done outdoors? Can it be done in multiple types of venues? That's important to know. Do you offer other things besides the performance itself? So master classes, workshops, school shows, or school programming. Any of those things are important to list here so that a programmer can see where you fit into what they're trying to package. Then your photos and documents, a bio, a high-res photo, or two. Actually, we require two. One can be a headshot. They both can be performance shots. Whatever you really feel is your best foot forward. These will also be used later on when you're accepted. We'll be using these for your online profile, for any kind of promotion or advertising that we're doing. Be sure to list not only your name, your group name, but your agent or manager, if you have one, what that agency name is, and credit the photographer so that we don't have to come back and pick up those details again later on. If you give it all to us now, if you're selected, we'll be able to just use those assets with all the accompanying details. Electronic press kit, or EPK, if you have one, you can include that here. Again, if you've mentioned a specific show, a specific piece of work, that may have a tech writer or a stage plot. If it's a musical act, there are many very specific kinds of technical support documents that you could upload here, and really gives the panel an idea that the show is ready, that you've thought it all through, and you've got everything that a programmer would be asking for when we're trying to get you out there. Touring itinerary, if you have a show that is touring now, let us know what that itinerary is. Maybe there are connections that can be made. Supplementary files, This can be any number of things, up to 5 files. They can be photos, they can be uh, reviews, testimonial letters from presenters that you've worked with in the past, anything that really builds your case and tells your story. Work samples, super important right here. The panel will be considering a large number of applications. Please be careful in submitting a specific and limited amount of material here. Do not overwhelm the panel. Anything more than 7 to 10 minutes will probably the panel will not have time to watch. So be judicious. Please note time in and time out stamps. In other words, when they should start if it's not at the beginning of a video sample. Tell the panel where to start and where to stop to have them focus on exactly what you want them to see. If there are passwords associated with a particular link that you sent, for instance, in Vimeo, very often there's a password that's required. Be sure to include those in these second boxes that ask for descriptions and timestamps. And then if you have anything additional that you'd like the panel to consider, there's a spot here to add that. And be sure to let us know how you learned about this opportunity. We get a lot of help from the regional arts organizations and from different organizations that help spread the word. And we'd really love to be able to recognize how that's working and where the greatest reach is. So please let us know how you found out about this. Again, at the bottom, my email. Feel free to reach out at any time. And before the deadline, hit that submit button. Now, let's get back to see if there are any questions in the chat box. There are already some questions here, so I'll read those and answer those. What if you have never done a showcase before? Does that impact your application? No. This is really about understanding that what we are looking for in the work sample is presentational. It's as if it's generally they're not recorded in front of an audience, but in your work sample, if you do have material that you have recorded performing with an audience, or very often, like with our video showcases, they are recorded as if you were performing for an audience. That's the most helpful for a programmer who is looking at you and imagining you on their stage. What we discourage is anything that is a sizzle reel, that's promotional, that's really commercial, that's been highly edited. That doesn't help them understand what they're going to get when you're on the stage. And so that's why, we tend to think in terms of showcases, a 15-minute chunk of a performance. But if you haven't actually done one before, no worries there. The panel will really be looking at your work, the amount of experience you have doing, these particular kinds of really tools, promotional tools, is not important. It's really most important that, like I said, the work is good. We see that you've got something ready to put out there, and that it tells us a very clear story. The next one is, can one submit multiple shows? The application is not about the particular show. We are not selecting shows. We're selecting the artist. You might talk about various shows that you have that are ready, but that would not necessitate a different application for each show. It's not really the show that's being selected. In fact, it's not the show that's being selected. It is the artist. It's just important that we know you have repertoire that is ready to go. You know, there are so many artists who are maybe a little more in the emerging part of their career, haven't really don't really have a history of touring and want to think about touring internationally. It's really a little bit more of a mid-career move for someone who has toured, especially domestically, and is looking to expand into new markets. Uh, we have heard in these trade missions that we go to that from these international programmers, don't it's not it's a waste of time to send artists who are not prepared, who are not ready to, can I bring you to my festival next year? You have everything ready to go. Do you know what your tech needs are? Those are all things that are most helpful for a successful application. How does language impact the competitiveness of the application? How does language impact the competitiveness of the implication? Shoshana, I'm going to ask you if you can you can rephrase that or be more specific. And you can go ahead and come right on if you'd like to, either in the chat or I don't understand the question. What language?
She just added it to the chat.
Thank you so much. Sure, as in shows or in English, does that matter? Oh, well, that will depend on your market. I mean, if you have, we have a lot of members at WA who are either um, Central South American or from Canada, and they have shows that are either in French and English, or they have repertoire that is in both languages. Same with Spanish and English. That's just a matter of indicating that you have that repertoire. It might be very appealing to a programmer in a Spanish speaking country that you have shows in Spanish. Uh, that's that's a positive on your application. You don't need to make that presentation to us. In other words, you don't need to prove the fluency or anything like that to us. Let us know that you have the expansiveness of repertoire, and that I'm sure would be considered a very positive thing. Okay, going back to other chat questions from Aaron. Should the program be as is, or is flexibility to add and subtract pieces depending on venue? Uh, Absolutely flexible, and I want to reiterate that we're not looking specifically at the repertoire. We're not selecting the repertoire. The panel is looking for the most uh, tour ready candidates. So the fact that you have multiple pieces in your repertoire, or you have a range in your repertoire of styles, or in terms of classical music, do you have new works? Do you write new works? Those are all things that create the widest range possible, which makes you the most attractive to the most potential programmers, right? If you also compose and perform your own works, uh, obviously, then you're of interest to a programmer who's doing a new works festival. If that's not clear, or somehow it's not brought to light in your application, then we would be missing an opportunity there. So uh, again, we're not select the panel will not be selecting the repertoire or selecting a kind of repertoire, an artist with a kind of repertoire, or even a depth of repertoire. You could really talk about one show that you do, and you do it for this reason, and it's about your story, and it is so compelling that that's obviously going to tour if, once programmers understand what it is. Um, I don't mean to put an emphasis on repertoire being at the forefront. It's just one of the tools that you have to demonstrate that you have a complete package. I hope that's clear. Um, can the fee be arranged? Absolutely. Or is the price given a minimum? It's, in a lot of categorization at WA and with a lot of the regional, like at APAP, you'll see under 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, 10 to 20 or 20 and above. They're really ranges, and it helps programmers who are in, particular budget categories. There is a big difference between venues, smaller venues that are programming all musicians that are under $5,000, compared to a different kind of venue that is able to create a festival with artists who are paying upwards of 20,000. There's a big difference there. And so you are letting them know sort of where you fall in there. Of course, those things are negotiable, but it's just about kind of what size venue, or urban rural, in the U.S. There are lots of, sort of, uh, indicators that in a lot of rural venues, the price point may be lower. They can do full seasons, but they're never paying more than $10,000 fee, or even $5,000. Uh, nothing is Nothing needs to be completely specific. Range is absolutely fine. And also, this is not necessarily the information that we're sharing with the programmers. That's what you will do once you network with them. So it's really, about letting us know the kinds of venues that you are used to working in, the kind of venues that you will be targeting, um, and then what you share with them is a different conversation. If you are applying for a particular production that is newer, if you are applying for a particular production that is newer, does it make sense to use previous experience, or does it make sense to center materials or work sample on the particular production you are applying for? Um, Again, you're not applying for a production. You're talking about where you are in that spectrum uh, of the work that you do. In fact, it sounds like you would want to talk about multiple things. You have these things that you have toured and are tour ready. Maybe those are chamber pieces, and you travel with four musicians, and these are the kinds of venues that have, presented that work. You're also working on this new particular thing. You also compose new works regularly and do, maybe you're a playwright and you do new uh, new works festivals. You write 10-minute plays. Those are the kinds of things that are important to discuss, but you don't need to say that this piece is what I want to make an application on, based on, and um, limit yourself to that. The 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 comment that was made earlier about, indicating if you know the number of players that will be traveling, the size stage, the kind of backline, all those things are just helpful in sort of cementing that this is a show you could take out tomorrow if they ordered it, and you could supply the tech writer, you could supply a stage plot, you could supply, this is This is a sort of standard lighting design we've used. All of those kinds of things are just to help the panel know, oh yeah, this artist is ready to go. And they also do works in development. But the artist who's only doing works in development, and I think I'll have a show that's ready in a couple of years, is not as competitive in this particular award as someone who has one or more uh, pieces of work that are ready to go. That's really a response to what we've heard from programmers that you know don't waste artists' time bringing them to these conferences if they don't have one or more things that they can show me and say I could bring this to your festival next year or next week. So that's really what that's about. Um, I would say for you, Daniel, uh, to the extent that you have space for it, to talk about multiple things. And in your supplementary documents that you add to the application, maybe it's a list of shows that are ready to go. Maybe it's something in particular that adds a little more depth to what you've presented. If you've really talked about one piece, like the one piece we're touring this year is this, but there are also these other ones. Let's see. Have you ever had puppeteers, puppet companies in your cohort? There's no worry about what we've done in the past and what we haven't. Like, I don't think we've had circus artists, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be in the cohort. I mean, my God, there's, the market for circus in Canada and Europe is certainly much greater than it is in the US. And so there is no limitation to what your practice can be to be a part of the cohort, because it's really about what are the end users, what are the programmers looking for. So make your case. Should we be thinking about touring 25, 26, earlier or beyond? That's a great question, and it's not really limited. What we do is we get your video up, ready to go. To the extent that we can, it depends on the budget that we receive that we don't know about yet for the next conference, but there'll be support for artists in the cohort to come to the conference in LA and potentially showcase live. Who knows if someone has an opening to fill? But generally, programmers who come to any of the conferences this year, whether it's WA or APAP, ISPA, they probably already have their 25 season set and they're looking beyond. But you should also know, and as we work with touring artists, this is a big part of it. Some of you who are more familiar with WA know that it's a long game. So the whole thing about meeting people, having contacts, following up with them in a good way, continuing conversations and having offers and then actual contracts, that process can take a couple years. That's probably more the case than anything happening faster or more long term. That generally when they're coming to the conferences, they're not looking for next year. They probably should already have that in motion, if not contracted, but they've made offers and they have the backup in mind and they have a season in their head. They're just finalizing the details. Chances are they're looking for the season after that, or even down the road. It's like anything in the performing arts. It's about making that great first impression, having a consistency of work that they can come back to and know that it's always going to be what I first noticed, and and see that you're working and that you're there when it's time for their season to be the right place for you. Um, it's so subjective and it's so different with each person. But I think you should be thinking about being ready right away, and you should think about being patient for building your career over some time. When an artist is selected, is that position? So, Angelica, are you asking, for instance, in an ensemble, is it just that one person who benefits from the program? If that's the question, go ahead.
My question, my question is, so we're applying.
Hmm.
So if we're selected, that means that we're just on a list for the programmers?
Oh,
Is
no,
that
no, 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 no. So, yeah, let me get a little more specific about what happens when you're selected. Um, the first thing that we will do when an artist is selected is we have a team, this video production team in LA. We get you connected with them immediately so that you can set up a time over between March and June to figure out when is the best time to record a showcase. Sometimes artists are touring or they're performing somewhere and they've said it would be great to record while we have this stage. Or they're at home and they know someone who has a venue that would be a great place to record a showcase, and they can set up the venue. They can get that time, and then a time is scheduled by the producers of when the equipment can be shipped and when the recording is done. And when the recording is done, those producers are there in they're remote, but they have this technology where they can be right there in the room. They help the artist set up the equipment, they help set the lights, they help do the tests, they test the audio, everything. They're there watching in real time and sort of directing the process remotely. Then so the recording is done, all of the equipment is sent back, and uh, all of the the data cards are sent back to the producers, and they edit the piece and they create a 15-minute video, with the artist's input, um, and they create that video. Then that at that by that point we're at about June, entering the summer, and then we begin to prepare for coming to the conference. Last year, we had the funding to be able to bring there were 10 uh, cohort members. All 10 came to the conference. Almost all of them did a live showcase. Some of them were applied and were accepted to do pitches. So that's where you can stand up in front of the programmers, the presenters, we call them in the US, and say, this is our work, this is a show that we're doing, and make a pitch, which can be, you know, as effective as a live performance, a showcase. Now the showcase, the showcase videos, when they're all done, they all go onto the PAD website. So you'll see when you go to the PAD website and you look around, you look at the roster of artists, and it will take you not just to their profiles, but you can watch their videos. So there's a gallery of right now 64. We'll add, 8 to 12 new artists this year. So there will be a brand new set of artists added to the gallery. And then we promote that internationally. So we're trying to get international programmers' eyes on that video showcase. So they're not limited to only meeting the programmers at a conference. Programmers can see these. Now, one thing that we are doing right now, and you'll see shortly, you'll see beginning in January, what we've done with the 64 previous artists is we have grouped them thematically. So there's jazz artists, jazz musicians, there's black dance, there's folks who are Americana, and they are grouped together, and we are creating sessions where someone with an expertise in sort of telling the story will host a session where they talk about um, this is East Moves West. These are artists from who came to the United States from the East. They bring East, South Asian, Asian, Pacific Islander traditions to the U.S. and add to the American story. And this is the story that they tell as a group. That is hosted, so it's given some context for an international programmer. And then there are excerpts from those 6 videos from the 6 showcases that are brought together into one piece. And those are going to be aired weekly beginning in January. So a programmer will be able to see a particular thing that they're interested in. It may be black dance, it may be jazz, it may be classical, it may be, something that's super contemporary, cutting edge kind of work. And they'll be able to focus on that. So if they're looking for that particular thing, they'll be able to see a mini series of showcases that do that. And then during the year, we have different sort of professional development opportunities, but it's really about the conference and the online showcase. But we get started right away, and it's not just a list. It's this gallery where programmers can see the work. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure, you bet. You bet. If chosen, is the WA contract becoming binding? As no, we are not as sole representation is the question. We do not represent you in any way. We are simply providing promotional opportunity for you. We are not your representative. WA is a membership organization, and we don't compete with our members. So this is just about creating a platform for you as artists. We don't represent you at all. What difference have you seen PAD make for artists? Are there reliable, tangible outcomes to being part of this cohort? And as in, have you found that being on the PAD roster leads directly to gigs? One of the things that, we're in this with, and I'm sorry we're going a little bit over, but for those of you who can't stay, I'll answer all the questions that I can. I don't want to put anyone on any pressure on you. Thea, if you wanted to speak about that, I'd be happy to have you do that. But I can answer the question. The PADX is a related program. It's funded differently, but it's federal funding, and it really is about trade delegations, about actually us going internationally and meeting people on their own turf. And federal funding requires they're looking for deliverables. And in the cohorts that we're in, we're the only performing arts folks. Everyone else, they're manufacturers, they're providing, very hard services and products that are manufactured and looking to be distributed. It's very cut and dry, and their deliverable, their outcome is, a contract. And we've worked with the Department of Commerce to let them know it's not that the business cycle is not that quick in the performing arts. You don't go to a conference and just make some pitches and sign up the contracts. It doesn't work that way. It takes time. And so we look on a much longer sort of trajectory in terms of measuring how successful folks are. And even after this year, you'll always be a PAD artist. pad artists that started in 2021, 2020, 2021 are still, they still have their videos up and they're still part of the process. They're part of those sessions that we're putting out there. We try to stay in touch with anyone who's gone on one of these trade missions or is a pad artist to let us know. It's really important that we know when you get those contracts, when you get those gigs and contract them, because that's the final goal. We have a lot of like intermediary goals about making contacts at the conferences, about the follow-ups that you do with them, about the conversations, the hot leads that you have as a result of those conversations. And generally, for working artists that are touring regularly, there are a lot of those hot leads that actually when you distill it down, when you begin to talk about, do those dates work, does this travel work, does this fee work, it begins to distill down into a smaller number of actual contracts that are signed. That's the goal. And the program is, in a way, not really old enough to have enough data to say exactly how many hard contracts have occurred. But Sia, who's on here, is not a pad artist, but has been an advancing Indigenous performance artist and has been on 2 of the trade missions and has reported back a lot of really positive activity as a result, a lot of good contacts, a lot of sort of half promises, folks who are saying, we could bring you for this festival next year and we really like this work. And, it's always, that's not always necessarily a guaranteed contract, but those are the things that do lead to contracts. So we follow up and we measure this stuff. And from the folks who go on the trade missions, we feel that there's a really strong return that is very positive. We're the hardest thing about PAD for me is getting those international programmers' eyes on your showcases, getting them promoted. And that's why we're constantly going on these trade missions and trying to get the word out. That's why we're doing these sessions to make it, okay, maybe if it's by theme, it's a little more attractive than saying, oh, we have 100 artists, look at them. And the results will come over time. All I can say is it's a program that will give you, if nothing else, it will give you a 15-minute showcase video that you can use on your own. And that's always helpful to have that in your portfolio. Oh, yeah, Thea, if you'd like to say a word, here you go. Following up is the key.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I would say the trade missions have been very positive, and I've been following up with folks, and the recent one to Womex. So I'm feeling encouraged. Not that something will necessarily be set for this year, but more 2025. Maybe late 2026 rather, or late 2025 is really, what I'm looking at. But yes, and very encouraged by these. So it's thumbs up.
great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Is there mentorship? That is not an official part of the program in terms of where the budget is directed, but there is a lot of, I think what many of the artists would say is there is a lot of peer-to-peer mentorship that happens and peer-to-peer learning. So it's not as much a mentorship or development program as it is hoping to be an opportunity program for you. Really about promotion. Okay, so we're coming up on time. So I'm going to ask that you send any further questions to me via email. Again, here's my address. It's in the guidelines. It's at the end of the application. It's on the website and right here on the screen. We really look forward to seeing your application. I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, many thanks to our funders and partners, and thank you for attending.